to the business. So we'll just start off with item 2, the Erie High School parking lot.
Chris Pickens. Okay, so again, at your table is the picture of the parking lot that we discussed last week. Based on the comments that were said at the last meeting, we did go back and consult with the team over at Erie High. And after talking through what they're looking for, as well as really talking with some of the safety concerns that come with this, the option of keeping the parking lot on the north side as originally planned in phase 1 and paving all of 34th Street and moving the bus traffic to there seems to be the opinion of everybody, at least at the building as well as us, is I think the one that makes the most sense. Some of the things that we definitely talked about, and Lori, I think you're the one that brought it up, is having the walkers who are going to a car walking the same direction as the buses. The other thing, just talking through this with the architects the other day, is we're doing all this work to the front of the building, and yes, we want to make it look pretty, but we're also putting in a security vestibule. And so we need visitor parking in the front, because that's going to direct everybody into the security vestibule. And as Lord, as you said, even though we can post no parking signs, you know, at the end of the day, cars are going to be parking there waiting for their kid. And now you've got buses going behind them, and then the cars aren't going to be able to get out, and it's just might cause a little bit more issues. So I think at this point, it would at least be our recommendation that we keep the parking lot that was in phase 1. Mr. Harkins, we can talk with the architects about seeing how far over we can push it to increase the amount of green space and still have parking spots. But then for phase 2, do not put in a bus loop, do not put a parking lot in that grass area. We'll just go with 34th Street being repaved and direct all of the bus traffic to 34th Street.
My interest was just in not detracting from the dignified traditional look at the front of the building by sticking a parking lot on either side. Preferably, I would stay to the south. If it all could be handled somehow to the War Street, that's my preference. And just for people who didn't hear the question asked before, I think we talked about having traffic come in off of 34, go behind the building, and seat you the street. But that's impractical because of the exiting of the building. That question was asked months ago by other board members.
And we did meet with the architects yesterday, and really, we were trying to drill into what phase 2 looks like. And from an overall safety aspect and the traffic on 34th Street, there's some things I think that we'll wind up talking to them about the parking lot and maybe not having any car traffic on 34th Street and limiting it as much as possible to the point where we just want buses on that road, and I think that would be the best thing for everybody.
But you mentioned that there would be sufficient staff parking in the back, so the staff probably wouldn't need to park on that street anymore.
Correct. I mean, now that the gas well building is down, that whole side, which previously I believe was paved but never lined, can now actually get repaved and relined. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing, is that if you've gone through that parking lot lately, you really can't see the lines. They're kind of non-existent. So being able to take the parking lot, which is that small one, which is on 34th Street, incorporating that into the back and relining it all, we should have more than enough room for staff parking. And then actually, when talking with Mr. Orlando, we talked about maybe even designating one area that's student parking.
So you're saying in one area be student pickup?
Yes.
I like
So if everybody is in agreement with that, then I'll make sure that I pass along to the architects that what the plan is for phase 2 and phase 1.
Everybody okay with that? I do want to say how I'm really excited about this, because I remember going from the old east to the new east, and it kind of helps boost the morale of the students, you know. And, if anyone's been in Erie High, I remember a couple of years back, there was still the green and yellow gym divider from when it was tech. So I think this is a real good motivational thing for our students and those in the community. So I do want to share that. On to item 3 for graduation. With Gwen Cooley.
I thought Mr. Brockman would talk about it.
I'll
But
start.
no, I don't, depending on when graduation is, last year, it was a good thing, but I've been to numerous other graduations, and the entire district, well, not the entire district, well, I'll just say, if they had 3 high schools, all high schools graduated the same day. And that was due to the fact some people have more than one child. So you may have a 10 o'clock graduation or 11 o'clock graduation, and you may have a 2 o'clock graduation. You know, you give them time to get their graduation, do it, and then you have time to put up the color scheme for the next school. And I think it's feasible because parents got more than one child in school, and they're going to different schools. And that way it can be all done and over in one day. It's just really have 2 schools, I think we could do it.
Good idea.
All goes in there. And so we'll plan on doing it again at the stadium, but we definitely didn't want to, without getting input from the board, move ahead with making arrangements of holding 2 graduations on the same day, unless you guys thought that there was any reason why we shouldn't do that.
Neil, you spoke to the administration of
Yes, I
those
did.
schools and they're supportive.
Yes, both buildings are very much in support of this. I actually think that overall, I think it really is the best thing. I agree with Gwen. If you have multiple kids in both schools, you'll be able to go. I think that, and the sooner we get the word out, the more we can increase the transportation that we offered. Now, last year we did offer people, I think, parking at Erie High, and then we bus them over. So if we get the word out now, then we'll continue to do that, and hopefully we'll get a bigger amount of people who are taking advantage of that.
So are you thinking weekend date then? Yeah, one
Right.
earlier in the day and one later?
Because we did it last year, was a Saturday and a Sunday.
I think it was the
Collegiate was a
Saturday
Sunday.
and Monday.
It was like a
Collegiate was a
Sunday
Sunday.
and a Thursday.
Mine was 1,000 degrees.
It was 1,000
Yeah, but that would be the plan. We would shoot for a Saturday graduation with Sunday being the rain date.
And it flows. You know, they're there that morning, you know, they're there, and they're there also to cheer their other friends on or whatever, and they're sitting over there, and when the time comes, it's their time, but you have time in between to put up the blue and gold or put up the purple and gold, you know. Thank you.
There's not a lot to change, right? I'm just trying to think of graduation last year. Is there?
We kept it pretty neutral last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was more about having district banners and district colors than anything else.
Okay.
The only difference is you have a lot more seats for one than the other, right? If you just have them all up and it wasn't.
Yeah. And I don't know, I honestly think, I mean, now that we have the turf down and the stadium has been beautified again, I actually think that it would be silly if we literally didn't utilize it. Even when we're on the other side of the pandemic, I still think that we should be using the stadium
Yeah,
for the graduation.
I actually love that. Item 4, board retreat.
So I have to apologize to the board when we set our date for the 29th last week. I was unaware that one of our presenters, a key presenter, is unavailable on that day. So I'm hoping that maybe we can secure a date sometime in February. Someone who emailed me and said that you have some conflicts. And it sounds like the 5th is out and possibly the following weekend. But if we could get something in February, that would be awesome.
Are we looking to talk dates now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the 12th, 19th, or 26th.
Monday, did you say there was conflicts with the 12th?
I think the 5th and
Is that next week?
Yeah, I had a conflict on the 5th and the 19th, but I can adjust. The 12th, I mean, like, 12th would be very good for me, but I don't know if there are other conflicts.
The 12th, all y'all men who didn't hear? That's Valentine weekend. I said all you men.
Appreciate that heads up.
All you men, that's Valentine weekend.
Put it in the calendar now.
I mean, I just precaution because, you know, they might want to go out for dinner, and you know, they're not gonna want to do it on Sunday, they might, you know, Friday, they're getting off work, Saturday, we got that time, I'm just saying.
Are you suggesting then the 26th?
Hey, I mean, I'm good with the 12th, I just said for you men. But you would still have time, because we're not gonna be there all day, right?
no, I think looking at the agenda, we don't have as much as we've had in the past, so we probably should be able to get everything done by noon.
Unless y'all do like Tim, and you know, Tim like to do weekend getaways, you know?
I will be out of town.
Does anyone else have a conflict with the 12th?
The 12th is good, I'm good the 12th, if everyone, if the 12th is feasible.
Great.
I just want to throw out there, you men.
Now, I'll talk to, I don't think you need anything from legal on the,
I don't think so, Tim.
I won't complain.
Should open at 9 to noon.
9 to noon, yes.
This is at the administrative building.
Yes. We'll get an agenda.
You better make sure
together
us
and
women
we'll
on the
send it
board
out
that
shortly.
chocolate covered strawberries waiting on us, that you ain't gonna be there.
Item number 5, the review of the meeting for tonight. New business and separations.
Right, those under supplemental, there are separate votes. Doesn't say what they are though.
The Harkins, the supplemental items, I believe, were all separated, and so they're all listed individually under separations.
Oh, I see. They have the 8th in front of them, that's what June.
Ace right here.
Yeah, the staple did the top of the next page, thank you. Might even pertain to an item that's before us, but there's nothing wrong with this meeting we're in right now being brief, giving us a good cushion between the stuff now and the start of the next meeting. This meeting never used to exist until a few years ago at all. It became necessary, it came to be when we had things like negotiation updates or a need to have information prior to going out there and voting on a union contract, for example. But that's the more important thing. I'm saying all this because someone made the remark at the committee of the whole last week that those meetings are boring. I used the word sterile. We've just taken all the interest out of them. We had all the fascinating information provided to us in here prior to going out there and just given the okay to things. So I'm suggesting the way to make those meetings more interesting and have more public connection with them is to focus on that being the important meeting and minimizing this one. This, you know, in other words, this could even be canceled from time to time when there isn't sufficient business. Better to do that, I think, than to have us crammed in here as we sometimes are, and we're not destined to be tonight from the looks of this, I just think it's, that's my suggestion for making those meetings more interesting, and more appealing to the public and for us too. So I'm just saying, but I've always, in recent years, I've been complaining that minimizing this is the better thing. And I just say this because it's a good way to point it out when it looks like we're gonna have that. So for what that's worth, I just think we've made those meetings sterile by clearing up too much in here and not expressing ourselves out there after we did in here. And as I said, there are situations where you're gonna have to do this, like if there's a negotiations matter or anything particularly difficult that's gonna be pending out there later. But in most cases, better to have the discussion out there in public. And my remarks the other night tried to be helpful about when we're dealing with a motion, the reminder that each board member gets two attempts for a total of 10 minutes. If that sounds brief, if you do the math, that's an hour and a half of debate if everybody takes on any one particular thing, everybody takes their full 10 minutes. So the point of the rule is to make it concise and not have us keep going back and forth saying, yeah, but to somebody that we disagree with. Because in the emotion of the moment, a lot of times you think, yeah, I didn't say this, I want to say that. But that two attempts per 10 minutes total kind of puts a little pressure on each of us to be concise and make our point.
I like that idea. Maybe we could start the regular meeting at 5 instead of 6 or 5:30. Maybe we get more of the kids in for those awards if it wasn't right on the dinner hour.
Well, that's a suggestion to someone. I think I've said what I just said frequently, and I felt like John the Baptist a couple of times, but a voice in the desert. But I guess I was noting your intention or your wish to have those meetings be more interesting rather than attempt to spice them up by resolutions and pinning down that require certain things. I just think it's better to have the controversy and stuff dealt with out there in front of the public and the cameras, and it's more real. And we've made it too sterile by hashing it out in here or having those wonderful presentations that we've had in here over recent years that no one ever saw except us.
Mr. Harkins, I think it would be easy for us if we could probably determine whether or not we need this meeting at the previous week's committee of the whole, and then work through everything on the agenda. And if there's things that require follow-up, like the parking lot, then we could keep the meeting on. And if not, we could cancel it and just go right into the regular meeting.
Yeah, I'm not pushing for an abrupt end to having this. I'm just pointing out that it's not as important as the other meeting, and when it can be canceled, or you could just consult with you and cancel it, or just, well, yeah, cancel it because it's already advertised. I'm just saying, I don't want an abrupt change. I just want everybody to stop and think what it would be like if we just didn't hash everything interesting out in here and have the presentations that we were given in here, because if they're given out there, they're on television and they're on YouTube now.
We'll start tonight with graduation, Madam President. That was the word I heard with that one.
Lord, thank you. I just want to point out, we do often, and we have tonight an executive session scheduled. And so as we're looking at potentially canceling this meeting, just consider whether we have people come in at 5:30 for executive session. Otherwise, we have to stay after the meeting when we're well and tired.
It's good reason. But in the absence of that, we can cancel it or shorten it.
Absolutely.
And that does happen often, as we know. But for those that haven't been through a lot of them, sometimes we get nice presentations and then it's the 5:45 because we have questions, and then there is a need for executive session. We got to make a tough decision with little chance to talk it over. So we put ourselves under the gun that way sometimes.
Any other matters?
So I guess for clarification that I want to understand, so I guess I get concerned about debate in front of the public, but that's because I'm new and I get that. So you're saying if we have questions, like for example, today I asked Mr. Polito for an update on the snow removal issue, because I was getting a lot of questions today. I don't know if everybody else was, but I would hate to throw that out in the public meeting and not allow them to have prepared. But maybe what you're saying is just give us a heads up ahead of time and then go ahead and throw it out in the public meeting. Is that what would be?
Yeah, we're okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not trying to stifle questions or anything like that. I'm just trying to say this meeting isn't so sacred, and I think the other one is.
I appreciate bringing up the snow removal. I was, a couple families reached out to me as well and asked about the drop-off locations not being shoveled. Okay. Yeah.
So then we'll just throw that out at the public meeting and we can have the discussion there, and that way you can update everybody.
Mr. Brockman's ready to,
Great.
to share.
Another approach to consider is if you have a question during the week, just submit it as an email to the superintendent, ask him to please be prepared as best he can to explain whatever the item is, and I'll copy that email to all board members so they all know ahead of time what you're wondering about. And they can tag on to that or await the answer too. So there's multiple ways of doing this. I'm just kind of reacting to pinning it all down into resolutions, because if we keep saying, put this in the report, put this in the report, put this in the report, it can get unwieldy, I'm thinking.
So it's just a matter of structure. Where do I ask that? At the end, when you ask for any other matter, is that when we would raise an issue like that?
I would suggest superintendent's report when he's done reporting.
After this report? Okay.
During, at the end of
Got
it,
it, got it.
during, after he's made the, there's usually, there's 6 things, 5 things, when he's done with that, 5 things, which includes the stair climbing.
So Ms. Pickens would ask for the motion of the second and then ask for discussion, and at that point, we could ask him a question.
No, while he's still giving the report, he'll report on Lincoln Elementary School and their final awards, and student enrollment reports. When he's done and says that concludes my report, then he's done what he intended to say. And at that point, any of us can say, how about snow plowing? Or can you tell us, we're working on this, so that. And if it's not snow plowing, which requires an answer sooner rather than later, he can say, I'll get back to you in a week, or I'll get back to you next month. So during the report, but after he's completed his report, before we have a motion and a vote on it.
Madam President, if I may, one more item. Item 10 this month is the approval of bills and payroll. That is the one where we're going to have some standing conflicts come up. And I had suggested that possibly we split that into 2 items, a 10.01 for the future agendas, a 10.01 and a 10.02, where we take 2 separate votes, one on the payroll and then one on the bills, so that for those who have to abstain, they're only abstaining on a portion of it as opposed to the entirety of the motion.
I like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Are we going into executive session now?
The executive session is the purposes of, we are legal advice personnel.